Welcome back to Around the Prompt. This is Logan Kilpatrick. Today we're joined by Marily Nika. Marily is one of the experts in AI product management. In today's conversation, we talk about all the things that product managers need to consider when building AI features, products, and services. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
I guess we could jump right into it around a quote I saw that I thought was interesting that I'd like for you to elaborate on. So the quote was, AI on its own is not a product. You need people called AI product managers that will actually act as a bridge between the AI and the niche technologies that users want. So I guess, after speaking that, what are your thoughts there? And I guess a follow-up question too would be, kind of a year after making this quote, what do you think has aligned with that? And then if there's been any challenges or changes kind of addressing that as well.
So for the last year or so, I've been attending conferences, I've been reading online, blog posts, research, and so on. And I kept seeing the amazing new capabilities AI can do with Gen AI, with everything else that hardware has unlocked. But what I cannot see and I don't see is what kind of problems from users does this sort of capability solve? And that led me to this whole, hey, AI on its own is not a product. You need people that will take, this fancy text to video algorithm in order to solve the right problems for the users. And this is what I have been doing since 2013 when I first joined Google. I joined Google and it was this research group really where we had fantastic research scientists that were saying, hey, we can translate audio into transcript. But this is great and the accuracy is good and all of these things, but we need to figure out a way to productionize this and come up with the right use cases for the people. And you saw a few years later, we saw products like voice search, Google Assistant, the smart home devices, smart displays, speakers, and so on that are speech powered and so on. So I keep telling people generative AI is amazing and all these capabilities that, Claude 3 was launched today, which is great, but we still, I feel, are far from coming up with the right products for the users. And the people in the role, if you will, that will solve this is AI product managers, which is kind of a hybrid role, let's say, that is going to act as a bridge between these two domains. And I've been very lucky to be a part of this since 2013. And we do see, to answer the second question, you said 1 year later, what is happening? Well, if you go now on job posts, you will see that research institutions, every single company really is trying to figure out what users would want from AI. So I was just looking at the Anthropic website. They're looking for product managers for research, OpenAI, of course. So yeah, there's more and more need for this. And the sooner people realize it, the better equipped they will be for a fantastic career as an AI PM.
So I guess off that too, are these product managers people who are very technical? Can you be a project manager without being technical? I guess kind of as far as roles, responsibilities, and kind of, background, what would make a successful product manager compared to maybe someone who wouldn't?
Yeah. So I am very technical. However, I don't think it's a requirement. What is a requirement is to be comfortable with the technology, to be able to have a conversation with your scientists, software engineers, and understand the trade-offs that go behind taking different technological approaches. So you definitely need to understand AI. You need to understand the concepts of, what an algorithm and a model is, and also the different options that are out there. You're not going to be the one deciding which technical approach to take, but your input will be needed on a day-to-day basis. For example, on my day-to-day, I will talk to, the team that is productionizing this technology, and they will say, hey, there are two ways of going about doing this. One is more private, one is more accurate, one, is going to have a worse user experience. And we get into this kind of trade space of different options and choose the right path for the users, because we always, of course, need to put the user first. There are similarities between the traditional PM role and the AI PM role. However, the AI PM role, as I like to say it, is trying to solve a problem and see if there's going to be product market fit for this specific technology. So we make a ton of hypotheses, we experiment as we go, and we pivot so often. A traditional PM may launch something within 3 months, but an AI PM may not launch anything for 2 years. I've seen that. And then at the end of year one, you kind of change things, and you end up launching something that had nothing to do with what you originally were planning to. But it's a fantastic role. There's no boring day. There are ups and downs, but the ups are really rewarding.
Really, I'm curious if we can double click and go a little bit deeper on this because it's really interesting. How do you see this world for AI product managers and just product managers in general, like reshaping as the capability of the models actually extends? And you can imagine like a good sort of example of this is like, what is the product going to be for AGI? Like if you have AGI, if you have a sufficiently capable system that can really supposedly do anything, like what does that actually look like from a product perspective? And I'm curious if that in some way like takes away some of the opportunity for product folks as the models become more capable because you don't need to build as much around them.
That's an amazing question. We will always need the human in the loop. Let's state that. I know there are some companies that no longer have a PM function, which was very sad, honestly. But I feel we will always need a PM. Now, I've seen some companies where they are more advanced on the AI front, not having a big team of PMs anymore, and they will have very, very senior ICs. So I see that trend happening. So you have someone that is very, very experienced that does not need to manage people anymore because AI is so capable that you're just not going to need many hands there. But if anything, I would like to argue that once we reach AGI, we're going to be even closer to the people side of the bridge and what they want versus the technology. So AI is not the product; it's going to be even more reinforced then. Imagine having something so powerful. You need to be able to funnel it in the right ways. I was reading about AGI. There were things about AGI is going to be able to feel sentiment, so it will be able to produce novels that actually touch people's hearts, and that was really interesting. But who tells us that this is really the reality? Who can kind of steer it and guide it in the right way? So the day-to-day of an AI PM will change. Like maybe you're no longer going to assess the trade-offs. Maybe AI assesses them on its own, but you will still need the human in the loop to make sure what we're bringing for the users is indeed good for humanity in the future.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious from your perspective, knowing a bunch of folks in the space, having been in the space a while now yourself, what are some of those like top of mind challenges that folks who are building in the AI space and like product managers are facing today? I'm curious if you have a pulse on like what the most pertinent problems are.
I will say the number one is morale, because you may be planning to do this. You have a strategic roadmap, everything looks great. And then one day you realize that what you thought would be technologically possible is just not. And you have to pivot everything. Number two, uncertainty. So the teams and the morale can affect the teams as well. And you will need to figure out ways to keep people motivated, to keep people from not going in something that's a bit more familiar, a bit more certain. Number three, you may have hypothesized about something and say, okay, this is it. This is what we're going to do in 2 years. This is what the entire ecosystem is going with. And then this groundbreaking new startup comes in and completely destroys your vision and your mission. So it's just, it requires, as I say, a tough stomach. That's a Greek expression. It means that you need to be ready to pivot. You need to know that, hey, things might not work out and I need to be ready to quickly switch. And not only for myself, but also to guide the teams and steer them along. I see there's just a lot going on. I think productionizing AI right now at scale is what the biggest challenge that I see. I was working at a product, I'm not going to name what, but in an experimental environment, everything looks fantastic with a super high quality. And then when we did some tests to bring it to millions of users, the quality was just not there. And what do you do there? Do you lower the quality to launch earlier? Do you stick to the original plan in launching like 2-3 years from now? It's kind of all these new challenges you will face on a day-to-day that have to do with hardware, with people, with talent, with competitors, and so on. It's just tough to predict, but I personally love this uncertainty, and it's where I want to be.
Yeah. Any particular challenges that come to mind for this current generation of AI that maybe like wasn't there for previous, like, whatever your classic computer vision use case or, time series prediction, whatever it is, and anything unique that you've seen to the large language model space?
Well, there are a lot of challenges around privacy, ethics. I created custom GPT the other day, and it was about preparing product managers for interviews. And I had uploaded all these books to it, and it would generate the perfect response to any question. And I posted it on LinkedIn, and I think I had like 2,000 conversations or so. And someone said, "Hey, what data was it trained on? And did you get permission before uploading these books?" And I just saw this comment, and I took a step back, and I was just so concerned, confused. It's something that didn't even cross my mind. And I realized that, if it doesn't cross my mind and I'm into this space, then, there is a lot we need to consider. I feel that we all get very excited with technology that we kind of forget to look at the bigger picture. Long story short, I ended up deleting this, and I created a new custom GPT for preparing for interviews. And I created my own content. I uploaded my own content in there. So ethics is one issue. Privacy is another. I think I was reading about this article where someone asked a question, and then they even got PII, they got information, like private addresses and all these things, which is really not good. So yeah, lots of questions to be solved. Regulations as well. This is what I've been reading about.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I guess, Marily, kind of going back to your transition after a tenure at both Google and Meta, kind of pivoting into the AI educational sector, what was the real catalyst behind that? And kind of just diving into maybe what that offering is for folks who might not know.
So for people that don't know, I founded the AI Product Academy. And essentially what this does is it prepares the next generation of AI product leaders. I found, and that was like 3 or 4 years ago, I was invited to Harvard to just give a presentation on what I do day to day, what AI is like. And I remember after finishing this lecture, people would come to me and say, "Oh my God, this was great. We hadn't realized you can combine AI product." And then I took a step back and I said, "Oh, wait, when I had to go through these interviews, I couldn't find any material. I didn't even know what the role was about." And I said, okay, if I could right now go back to the past, what kind of content would I need to see to understand the role, be able to succeed on my day-to-day and so on. So I put together a curriculum which is for people that want to become AI product managers, or the people that want to enter leadership, or people that want to create an org within their companies with AI PMs, to understand what it takes, what skill set, what the day-to-day looks like, what the challenges are, what the metrics, how on earth do you measure success for an AI product, right? And I ran a little MVP, a little experiment, and it was kind of cohort-based live course on Maven, and every time it would get sold out. So I started running it every couple of months. Started running it every month. At this point, I have like 3 programs running. One is async, and yeah, I just love. I think I found my calling with educating people about AI and product management. And yeah, if anyone is interested, we'll share the links so that they can take a look.
Huge congrats. I'm pretty sure last I checked, it was like almost 2,000 either active or past attendees or people who have completed the course. So it's a lot of people you're helping.
Yeah, we're at 3,000 now, and we're providing certifications. Wow. Yeah, it's really. But what's even better is that there is a community that has formed around this, and I'm getting people come to me and say, "Hey, we want to teach. We want to be a guest speaker. We want to help." I'm getting roles, interview requests, and some people actually have raised funding because they met as part of my community, and they are. I should have become an advisor there, that I think, but yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity.
I love that. I'm curious how much, and this actually ties really well with the educational part, how much of what is product management varies from company to company. And I'm wondering, from your experience at Meta and at Google and other places, is there a huge difference in the culture and the way that product managers actually function inside these organizations? And how much of that do you have to give people a heads up as part of your course, or is there enough general things that translate across all companies?
Yes, very good question. The role changes dramatically. So Google specifically primarily focuses on integrating AI across, the broad range of products they serve. They recently just added Gemini on Google Docs, for example, which is fantastic. Whereas Meta emphasizes on leveraging AI to enhance the social connectivity and develop immersive virtual augmented reality experiences. So that on its own is says a lot, right? One is more for the social use cases. The other one is more for like work, productivity, and kind of on an individual basis. So being a product manager in both companies, what I noticed is I feel that, and again, this is completely my experience. Other people may have experienced this completely differently, but I felt that Meta, in the PM role at Meta, had so much more strategy involved because it was way more 0 to 1 and trying to make sure you ask the right questions, have enough conviction to proceed to the next step, versus Google, where things things are a bit more certain. There's just more resources in a way to help you pave your path. You have more conviction from your existing user base as to what's needed. I think it also depends on the kind of AI product you're leading. One is the 0 to 1, which means, hey, we have these glass here. Would people be interested in this? Versus 1 to N products, which is more like we're Netflix. We want to come up with a better recommendation system for this specific user persona. So yeah, it depends on whether you're 0 to 1, 1 to N, but I find that Meta moves so much faster. There's so much more strategy involved. Google is more steady and steady progress. And I got to work more closely with engineers and scientists at Google, which is what I love. But yeah, it's just different muscles that I like flexing. I guess one more thing is that Meta, I learned what a product review really is. And it's this fantastic forum where you'll put together kind of a little document to say what you're trying to achieve, how different options, trade-offs between options, and you'll get in a room to get buy-in from leadership. But it was a different way of, just convincing people that what you aspire to do is actually the right thing. But yeah, fantastic role in both companies. It's just yeah, being an AI PM is the best.
I'm curious, when you're looking at different companies, do you have like a toolkit or a framework or suggestions for how folks should assess like what kind of product culture and like what a specific company has? Like, is there anything that you're like looking for when you're like, is this a job that I want to do? Like, here are the questions that I want to ask the leadership team or other folks who are PMs, things like that? Or can you just like assess that from like the product itself?
Actually, the best strategy is to talk to the more junior people that just joined, people that are recent grads, and just ask them, hey, how has your experience been? Do you get to talk to senior leadership? How much visibility do you have? Are you ever asked to make any decisions? Because that's where you know that the culture really cares about the employees and the people are involved in decisions, even if they might be more junior versus a company that's more like, hey, you never see leadership and so on. So I'm a huge fan of big open cultures where I can just send a calendar invite to someone that's on the C level or VP level, and they can within a week find some time for me just to welcome me, say hi. So yeah, that's a nice way of doing it. Every time I've decided to change a job, I've been talking to the more junior people just to make sure the experience is great throughout the board.
That's very interesting. Yeah, and I haven't heard that before, but I feel like it definitely makes sense. I guess kind of a question for you as someone who's technical and with so many kind of AI projects being thrown out there now, how do you kind of evaluate the potential and the feasibility of some of these AI projects? And then are there metrics or criteria that you kind of use to judge that success?
Great question. There are so many startups that come to me and like I advise them. And there was a startup that came to me a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, here's, this experience we're building, and here's all the, the data points we have as to why this would be a success, but we're struggling to get data. And, what do you advise for us? How are we going to get data to train our models? And I told them, you don't really need AI at this point. You want to validate your idea and concept. You should just hard code an experience in there. You should just add a hybrid approach if you do want to do some training, but just don't really worry about that. So the first answer to this question is make sure there is need for AI before going about evaluating an AI product. I call this out because I see it so often. It's what we call the shiny object trap. Everyone wants to be in AI. Everyone wants to have a Gen AI solution. So ask the right question, which is, do I need this? Is this really the only way that I'll be able to get answers and succeed for my users? If yes, perfect. Second mistake I see is that people feel that the accuracy of the output is everything. It is not. The accuracy of the AI is just a little part of the puzzle. What you should see if you're building an AI product is the standard product metrics. So if you are in the one-to-one space, you're adding AI because you want to move the needle in a specific metric, for example, retention, growth, money, whatever you name it. So A/B tests, and I said, like, experiments is a huge deal in AI products. So you will run an experiment where you will compare like a target group that doesn't have the new AI feature and the target group that has the AI feature, and you'll compare that metric you care about specifically. Now, there are secondary metrics, like, how is the AI performing? How is the accuracy? But that alone does not affect whether a product is successful. And this is the type of thing where I'm teaching at the boot camp because a lot of people think that they always need to stick to the technical side, make sure technical things go well. But no, as an AI PM, you look into the overall experience you are providing by leveraging AI.
I guess a quick question off that, and you hit on it a few times there as far as like trying to gauge the market. Is this a project, or is this a tool that would actually have a fit? Is there a market out there? I guess from your best practices, like who are actually people you're reaching out to and asking that question for? It sounds like there might be like interest groups, but like how do you actually go out and like accumulate for a mass audience as whether or not this would be a fit or not?
Well, in bigger tech companies, you're kind of in a better, things are easier because you likely have a dedicated UXR department and they already have, candidates they can reach out that belong to specific user segments. If you're a smaller one, you can also dog food internally and reach out and say, hey, do you belong in these user segments? What would you think of this? What would you think of that? If you're a smaller company, like a startup, there are, surprise, surprise, AI tools that can help you. There is a tool actually I came across. It's called Como.ai, where it gives you sentiment. So you will say, hey, would families be interested in a smart fridge? And it will say, well, according to Reddit, according to Quora, according to Twitter, people are leaning towards a no. And that to me is fascinating, that you can in seconds receive sentiment from the user segment you're targeting. And it also gives you the links to the Reddit forums and Quora so that you can click and actually create the conversation. But of course, you can also hire an external agency to assess the market. And but I think I was advising a startup and they were looking to do just this, and the quotes they were getting were 10, 20, 30,000 just to do the market research. Whereas you can do that in seconds with these new AI tools.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm also curious, like how much of your academic research background impacts the way that you think about building products. Like, was there a lot of things that, because you have like a PhD in computer science or machine learning or something like that, right? And yeah. I'm curious if that, if any of that has carried over, or if it's like a completely different world and it's just helpful that you understand how computers work and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It has carried over, and it's good and bad. It's bad in the sense that I understand, how things work, and I kind of want to jump in and do it myself. Sometimes I'm like, no, wait, that's not your job anymore. And good because I don't get stressed by the uncertainty that I mentioned before. When I did my PhD, it was very strange. So a PhD means, you make a hypothesis about something and you want to prove it. So there is a series of experiments you run, conferences you publish to prove it. So I'm very comfortable in this experimental culture because when you do the PhD, you make the hypothesis and you don't know if your hypothesis makes sense, and you're fine to live with that for the next 2, 3, 4 years or however long the PhD takes. Number 2, I document everything, and I'm so detailed in my documentation that has proven to help so much. When, for example, I put together a PhD and then I share it with the scientists, will come to me and say, oh, perfect, this is clear, I get it, I don't have any follow-ups. Whereas I know other PMs that move way faster than I do, that's the trade-off, and just put a little deck together and it's like, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to do it, done. And then they get the storm of questions. So that's also another skill that has helped me. And I guess the last thing is with a PhD, I've become trainable when it comes to new tech. So if there's some new technology that comes out or a tool or anything like this, I'm fine to, again, anxiety-free, stress-free to just jump in, forget what I knew and just try out something else.
Yeah, I'm curious if you have any, riffing off of this topic a little bit, suggestions or advice for these two different user personas, one of which being folks who perhaps have like a computer science programming background and maybe for the folks who don't, what advice about getting started in the product space and especially around the AI product space you would have for those two different sort of tracks to get into the space?
I think what matters the most is company based. I always tell people, in your first 30, 60, 90 days, take a step back and just see how things work in the company. Are there pre-trained models? Are we collecting data from scratch? Who does the training? Is there ML ops in-house? Is it not? What metrics do we care about? Do we care about growth? Do we want to make money? What kind of skill set do we need? Are there specific languages, algorithms that we prefer to use? Are there anything we need to avoid? So I think that the best thing is to understand what each company is interested in. Assume you've already entered the space. Now, if you have not entered the space, I would say, I would say take my bootcamp, but I would say take a course that can give you an overview for AI without it overwhelming you. So you don't want, there are some amazing courses on like Coursera about AI, but it is going to get very deep in math and it might overwhelm people. So as an AI PM, you do not need to understand the mechanics and what training really means, but you need to understand what training results in, like what can it do for the user. A good example is, classification algorithms, for example. I actually have a 4-year-old and I'm teaching her about the world, obviously. And we were walking down the street and I was like, oh, this is a squirrel, this is a dog, this is a squirrel, this is a dog. And eventually one day she saw an animal and she's like, oh, a squirrel. So it's, understanding how conceptually these algorithms work without you understanding what goes on in the 4-year-old's head, right? How she found the pattern, what exactly stood out. So yeah, understand these and then understand how to work with research scientists. That is a very underrated skill. And on every interview, there is always like a scientist or a software engineer that's going to do a cross-functional collaboration interview hat, just because of the importance. Like you want to make sure you hire people that can work in highly cross-functional environments to get buy-in, to make sure, to gain the technical influence from their teams. I think technical influence is a very important skill.
I know we started this on a quote, but there was another quote too that I thought was interesting. I think ties with this as well, right? And I think the quote was, all product managers will be AI product managers in the future. Curious to see if you still stand by this. And I guess kind of just diving a little bit more deeper into that statement as well.
Yes, and this quote means so much to me. I remember someone asked me, hey, am I going to get replaced by AI or something like this? And I said, no, if anything, all product managers will be AI product managers in the future. And I tweeted this and it went viral. And it was the first time where I realized, oh, wait, maybe I can create content. Maybe I should start writing because, people seem to enjoy this. So yeah, that resonates with me a lot. And yeah, absolutely. My students, right, they come to me, they're like, I want to be an AI PM. And I ask them, well, okay, what is your background? What have you done? And there was this specific person, she was working for a dating app. And she said, well, I want to maximize the experience and make sure people meet the right person. And I said, how have you been doing this? And she said, well, I look into the criteria that, the app matches one person to the other. And I said, and then what do you do? And then, I work with a software engineer so that they can improve the way and the match quality and so on. And I said, so wait, they are definitely using AI. And these criteria that you just discussed is what goes in as an input to the system to improve that matching. And that was the end of the call. And then she comes to me next week and she's like, oh my God, we were using AI to do this. And I hadn't realized that I've been scoping documents that leverage AI. And now she went back and she was like learning everything around how the mechanism works. And she was able to improve things so far. But a lot of people already are AI product managers without knowing they are AI product managers. And I think that's hopeful for people because you can reshape your profile and your resume to add, here's what I've done. And during an interview, you'll say, hey, I've done this. Like, here's what it is. I can do it for your company versus starting from scratch.
I'm curious, going off of that, whether or not you have any particular things that stick out in your mind as far as like product experiences could be related to AI, could not be, where you think like things just like ended up like wildly different in the outcome that you would have expected. And yeah, whatever, however you want to get to that part of the journey. Yeah, from your time at Meta, from your time at Google, I'm curious if there was any like hard lessons learned essentially that you wouldn't have spotted initially.
Very good question. When we train a model, the most important part is the data we're using to train this model. So the output heavily depends on the data. I was advising a startup and they were working in speech because speech has been my domain for 8 years. And it's interesting because they came to me and they said, hey, what do you think of the product? How does it work? And, I tried to trigger their speech recognition and it was just not working well at all. Like, it was horrible. And I told them, hey, it just doesn't recognize me. Is it my accent? Because obviously I have a Greek accent. They said, no, it's been trained on data from speakers from anywhere from the world speaking English. I'm like, okay. And then eventually we realized it's because I have a higher pitch voice compared to other people. And the data they used was all lower pitch. And the startup members that were dogfooding this, they had lower voices than I did. So it was just not tested on, it wasn't inclusive enough. It hadn't been tested from a lot of diverse folks. But it's interesting because they hadn't realized that huge issue. So yeah, we have to be sure to be inclusive. We need diverse people building for diverse people, which I cannot stress the importance of it enough. And unfortunately, to this day, we see teams are still not great at inclusivity. That's, again, my experience from this little small startup, not a specific company.
I guess question, again, as someone who's very technical and has a lot of experience, what does your personal tech stack look like? It sounds like obviously you're leveraging ChatGPT, created a GPT yourself, but I'm just curious kind of day in, day out to what you're currently using tool-wise that's actually helping you as far as impact goes.
So there is this tool I use very often. It's called you.com, and it's a personalized AI assistant. It has a similar UI like ChatGPT, like Gemini, and so on. But what is interesting about this is that it's LLM agnostic. So it has different modes. It has smart mode that essentially can help you accomplish tasks quickly. It searches the web real time, but it also has a research mode that can conduct in-depth analysis to whatever you ask. And it's actually going to compare things, and specifically for scientific and specific topics. Then they also have one more mode, which is the genius mode. And that is for more kind of multi-step, more complicated problems with advanced capabilities where you can upload files, it can actually generate code and so on. So I find myself using you.com all the time. I also use Como.ai for sentiment for the users. Another tool I use very often is Notion.ai because it helps me collaborate with other people and use the AI generation capabilities within the document. So everything you generate sticks in the document. You don't need to copy and paste it anywhere else. You can just add people in, tag them. Notion has amazing templates you can use, and so on. So yeah, there are fantastic tools out there. Another one that's great is called Craftful, and they actually give you deep AI analysis for user feedback. So it's similar to Como.ai, but it has some other great features I really like. I know on Product Hunt, they were named like second product of the day or something like this. And then last tool I'm going to call out is Zeta.io, which turns the voice of the customers into products that can actually generate money. So I totally recommend all these. Check them out. And I know that the people creating them, and it's just great to see people with so much passion about solving product problems.
I love that. I met Yana from Craftful, and she's incredible. And I played around with the product, and like it's such a useful product, and I'm really excited for her. It's like really, I feel like it's also extremely complementary to the work that a lot of PMs are doing, and like trying to take user feedback and actually synthesize that into like actionable product improvements and the roadmap and things like that. So I appreciate that suggestion. I'm also curious, so many products that exist today are built with like the human as the end user in mind. And as we push into this world of AI agents and AI assistants that are actually like doing more things for humans, I'm curious if you have thoughts on like what will end up happening for a lot of these products where, the interaction paradigm is again built for humans, like a mouse click or like even a UI in a website is like built in inherently for humans to interact with. And now we're basically taking AI systems and being like, try to do the thing that humans doing. And I'm curious if you think how that will play out, and also if there's an opportunity for like new interaction paradigms for AI agents to like do all the same sort of things that humans are trying to do today.
Yeah, very good question. As I said, I was in speech for 7 years, so I'm very familiar with different ways of interacting with technology. Voice is the obvious one, but I want to call out, I just bought a Vision Pro a couple of weeks ago, and I was just mind blowing by the interaction model. So essentially, there is eye tracking within the headset, and it can see where you're looking at. And then according to where you're looking at, you can just do this, tap, and that is going to click on it. So AI is enabling so many unique ways to interact with technology. And I think mouses are going to not be needed at all in the future. Keyboards are still there. I don't think they're going to go away for anytime soon. But actually, you know what? Maybe keyboards will disappear as well. Maybe we'll have thought to text eventually with the use of AI, right? But yeah, it's amazing to see how the interaction stops. And I see it with me on the day to day. I write an email, and my email knows how I write. It knows my style, it knows my personality. It knows if it's a work email or a personal email, and it will guess how I'm going to open the email, how I'm going to close the email, and it writes on gray, kind of it completes the sentence, and I press tab, and it autofills it. And this has saved so much time for me on the day to day, and it's just fantastic to use AI for little day-to-day things like that really add up.
Do you think we'll get towards a world where we, in the very literal sense of the word, have AI product managers where we're actually having people who are building products for AI and not for humans? Like, do you think that's on the near-term horizon? It seems like philosophically it's possible in the next 5 years, but I'm curious to hear your reaction to that.
Now, that is a question I've never gotten before, and that's an amazing, amazing question. Very interesting. Well, in a way, though, a custom GPT could be a product for AI because it's a way to funnel a prompt so that the AI can understand better, so that it can then output the right content to the right user. But yeah, that is a very good question, and a very good food for thought for a post I can make. So yeah, hold that thought. I don't know what to say yet, but yeah, I'm gonna be thinking about this.
I guess AI in the context of, I think there's two sides of the party. There's folks who are really involved and indulging in all these different platforms, very into kind of trying different things, kind of have a positive approach to AI. And there's still people stuck in their ways as far as, AI is going to take my job, it's not safe. A lot of caveats that come along with it. But I guess from a creativity level, from a human standpoint too, I guess how do you envision AI systems evolving to enhance human creativity instead of replacing it?
This is a good question. Again, it comes up every day. And what I tell people is AI is not going to take your job, but people that leverage AI are going to take your job. And this can be used for any context, for any role, right? But it's true. Even if someone is 20 years in and they have all the expertise, if you get someone leveraging AI, they will do the work better, faster, and they will be more rested as they're doing it. So they'll have time to spend their cognitive load and things that are less tedious, that require more strategic thinking, if you will. So AI is a necessity. Everyone needs to embrace it. Everyone needs to understand what tools they specifically should use. And of course, no one is getting these outputs and they're just, blindfoldedly walking with them, but it gives us a head start so that we can be better professionals. So yeah. And the thing is, we're in a bubble here in the US and in tech, and especially in the Bay Area, where everyone has embraced this technology. But there are people that are still not aware of what Gen AI can do and what all these AI tools can do. And they'll eventually catch up. But I just want to make sure to get the message across. Like, hey, people, don't be afraid to embrace these new technologies. And it's not a luxury and it's not an option to embrace them. Like, you have to do it to survive in what you do.
Yeah, I'm curious. The global audience and perspective comment piqued my interest. Like, do you have a sense of like when you're trying to build AI systems for these global audiences, like what any like specific considerations? I know like some of the fundamental limitations of the models, they might be better at certain languages and other things like that. But I'm curious if there's other things that you've had to keep in mind as you're building for not just people who are based in the US.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, there are so many regulations that are different from country to country. Second of all, the whole culture, there are specific countries that have higher concerns when it comes to data and privacy than others. And it makes it hard to be able to solve for every single country and every single culture. A way to address this is to localize content and just make sure to raise awareness about the safety and the privacy tools each country is going to have. Every company and every team needs to have a privacy counsel and someone that will make sure to take all these considerations into account before building for these specific people, right?
And then the last question we kind of like to, elaborate on is where we're 2 months in, almost 3 months, I guess, approaching 3 months into 2024. We like to ask, one thing that you're very excited for in 2024 around AI, and another thing that maybe you're a little cautious of or maybe would not like to see, not quite yet in 2024.
Another very good question. In 2024, we're starting to see AI integrated in experiences. As I said, we saw Gemini getting integrated throughout, Google Docs and all these things and Google Decks. So this integration is going to reach the people that are not early adopters of AI, and they'll start getting some of the benefits. So I think that part is fascinating. Something I'm afraid of is a lot of startups and companies are investing too heavily in AI and they don't really have the right strategy in it. So I've already seen some companies making big bets and it just didn't work out. So I just want to call out that strategy is a massive deal that people need to invest in. Make sure you make the right decisions, you have the enough conviction before you go ahead and just start implementing things. So AI is getting integrated in experiences, but we need to be cautious and make sure we know why we're doing it.
Yeah, I love that. I saw a chart which was like the expected availability of GPUs in like 2024 and 2025. And like part of the expectation was a lot of companies that have invested heavily in AI were going to realize that they really had no strategy and there was no reason for them to get all that. And those GPUs will flow back into the supply of like available compute that people can use, which is going to be really interesting to see.
Exactly. I was looking, there was this startup and they had this amazing Chrome extension where you could add in Google presentation the ability to generate slides automatically. And it was amazing and you would pay for it. But now, Gemini is on it, so you can do it natively. And this kind of startup is just, I don't know how things are going, but don't invest too much on something unless you know how to pivot if some event like that occurs.
Yeah, Marily, I'm super excited. It sounds like you have moved on to a new opportunity. I'm curious to hear what it is that you're going to be doing.
Yes, sounds good. I'm back to Google, back to what it feels like home, and I have a super exciting role. I'm just so happy. We're building out a team, We're hiring a lot, which is great considering the market situation right now. And yeah, I can't wait to announce more.
I'm incredibly excited to hear more. So thank you for taking the time to chat with us. Where do you think the best place is to send folks to learn more? I think we talked about the Product Academy, and we'll include a link to that. Are there other website, Twitter, LinkedIn places that you would suggest folks to connect with you?
So LinkedIn primarily. I would also add my Substack, my newsletter where I write about AI and product management. And my academy is actually having a website that's being built right now. So I'll give you the link. If it's by the time we post this, you can just send people there.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you for joining us. I'm super excited. I need to do the academy myself as well as someone who spends too much time doing AI. So I'll have to do that in my free time. But thank you for joining us again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you very much, Marily.